History is more than just dates and names in dusty books. It's a shadow stretching across time, full of secrets, tragedies, and whispers that refuse to die. This is Morbid History with Thomas Gloom. Hotel President, Kansas City, January 1935. The bellhop knocked gently. No answer. Again, but louder this time. Still, nothing. Inside room 1046, something didn't feel right. When the door was finally opened, the scene was strange. The man inside, Artemus Ogletree, was naked, bound, bruised, yet alive. Barely. His belongings were missing. No wallet, no clothes, just a comb, a brush, and a bottle of diluted sulfuric acid. The phone was off the hook, the lights dim, the walls stained with blood. He whispered one last thing before slipping into unconsciousness. Nobody did it. Days later, he was dead. No suspect, no weapon, no motive. Just the name written in blood, and a trail of questions with no answers. It was January 2nd, 1935. The wind scraped through downtown Kansas City like a knife. At the front desk of the Hotel President, a young man walked in. Slim build, dark hair slicked back, a scar just above his ear. He looked about 20, maybe younger. He signed the register as Roland T. Owen from Los Angeles. He had no luggage, just a comb, a brush, and toothpaste. When the bellhop escorted him to room 1046, Owen requested one thing: leave the shades drawn. He liked the darkness. An odd guest. From the beginning, something wasn't right. The hotel staff would later say that Owen kept the lights dim at all times. He often sat in the dark, phone pressed to his ear, whispering to someone they never saw. He asked that no one clean the room, then changed his mind the next day. He seemed anxious, tense, always listening, always looking. When a maid stopped by to deliver fresh towels, she recalled hearing another man's voice inside the room. "No, Dawn, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry." The maid thought maybe he was arguing with someone, or being threatened. But she looked inside and only saw Owen there. The days before. Over the next 2 days, strange incidents piled up. The phone in room 1046 was repeatedly found off the hook. Housekeepers noticed that Owen had fresh bruises. Guests heard loud voices from behind the door. One calm, one angry. On January 4th, a bellboy was sent to check on Owen. He knocked, and a voice inside said, "Come in." The door was locked. "I can't open it," the bellboy replied. The door's locked." There was silence. Then, a strange answer. "Turn on the lights." Confused, the bellboy left. When he returned with a master key and entered the room, what he found chilled him to the bone. Owen was lying on the bed in total darkness, naked, covered in bruises, clearly drunk. The phone was once again off the hook. The bellboy put the phone back on the hook and then left. A grim discovery. Around 10:45 a.m. on January 5th, a hotel operator noticed that room 1046's phone was once again off the hook. Frustrated, she sent a bellboy to check in. He knocked. No answer. He opened the door with a key and stopped cold. Owen was on his knees, his hands and feet bound with cord, blood smeared across the walls and sheets. A towel around his neck was also soaked in red. He had been beaten, stabbed multiple times in the chest, and bludgeoned in the head. But he was still alive. When police arrived and questioned him, Owen gave only one answer. "Nobody did it. I fell and hit my head on the bathtub." Then, he lost consciousness. He died a few hours later at the hospital. Unanswered questions. The investigation quickly turned into a maze of dead ends. Owen's fingerprints were not in any criminal database. There was no identification. And despite checking in from Los Angeles, there was no record of a Roland T. Owen from that area, or anywhere else. More strange details emerged. None of Owen's belongings were found. There was no wallet, no clothes, not even a hotel-issued pen, or even soap. One of the room's 2 glasses was found in the sink, missing a piece. The other was on the shelf. Detectives found some other items that might have been evidence. A hairpin, safety pin, unsmoked cigarette, and a full bottle of diluted sulfuric acid. One of the towels was found on the telephone, possibly used to wipe off fingerprints. Yet, there were 4 small fingerprints left on the phone, and investigators believed they belonged to a woman. Who had tied him up? Who had stabbed him? Why did he lie and say nobody had done it? Then, investigators found the note. The Mystery of Dawn. Inside room 1046, police discovered a cryptic note written on hotel stationery. "Dawn, I will be back in 15 minutes. Wait." It was unsigned. The implication was clear. Owen had been meeting someone. Possibly several people. The hotel staff reported seeing a man matching Owen's build walking the halls, but no one could ever identify him. Dawn became the invisible character in the room. Always spoken to, never seen. A name revealed, and more confusion. The body was sent to a local funeral home. With no next of kin and no ID, the city planned to bury Owen in a pauper's grave. But then, a mysterious phone call came in. A male voice, calm and flat, asked the mortuary to delay the burial. "Don't bury him just yet. He'll be buried in a proper cemetery." Within a few days, money arrived in the mail. enough to cover the funeral costs. Along with it, a floral arrangement and a card that read, "Love forever. Luis." The man was buried in Kansas City's Memorial Park Cemetery. A few months later, the true identity of the victim was finally uncovered. His name was Artemus Ogletree, a 17-year-old from Birmingham, Alabama. His mother, Ruby, had received letters from him after his death. The letters. Ruby Ogletree told police that she had last seen Artemus in 1934, when he left to hitchhike to California. A few weeks after his death, she received a typewritten letter. Odd, considering Artemus didn't know how to type. The letter was signed in his name. It claimed he was traveling in Europe. Other letters followed. One said he'd married a wealthy woman. Another referenced places he'd never been. Then came the call. A man phoned Ruby, saying her son had saved his life in a fight and was now in Cairo, Egypt. He couldn't write because he'd lost his thumb, but he was fine. The man gave his name as Godfrey Jordan. Ruby later told reporters, "I don't understand it. None of it makes sense." Theories and ghosts. The press, as you can imagine, went wild. Was Artemus a secret agent? A mob courier? The victim of a sadistic lover? Some claimed he was killed in a lover's quarrel and that Dawn was a jealous partner. Others believed he was wrapped up in something larger. Blackmail, espionage, maybe something even stranger. One theory floated by police was that Artemus was lured to Kansas City under false pretenses. Another proposed he was being kept under control, manipulated, coerced, maybe tortured. Still, the case went cold. No one was ever arrested. No fingerprints ever matched. A final twist. Nearly 70 years later, in 2003, a bizarre final clue emerged. A librarian historian in Kansas City received a phone call from someone in another state. The caller said they were sorting through the belongings of a recently deceased elderly man. Among the items was a box, sealed shut. Inside, old newspaper clippings about the Ogletree case, and something else. Something the caller wouldn't describe. The librarian reported the call, but the caller never followed up. The identity of the elderly man? Unknown. What was in the box? Well, that's still a mystery too. Legacy. The murder of Artemus Ogletree has become one of the great unsolved crimes in American history. A locked room mystery with no killer. A victim with no voice. A story that fades into silence just when it should be screaming. Was it jealousy? Blackmail? A game gone wrong? Or something stranger? We don't know who Dawn was. We don't know whose fingerprints were on the phone. We don't even know if Artemus knew how much danger he was in until it was far too late. What we do know is this. Someone went through great lengths to hide the truth, to erase his identity, and then resurrect it, just to muddy the trail. In room 1046, something happened. And nobody nobody did it. Greetings, dear listeners. Thomas Gloom here. I'm stopping by to share two brief things. One, if you are enjoying this podcast, please consider sharing it with someone you know. And also, leave a review. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or somewhere else, leaving reviews helps to promote this podcast and get it before new potential listeners. Let's grow this thing together. Also, depending on where you listen, you might be able to leave comments on episodes. I would encourage you to do that. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm open to feedback. The second thing is that I have been active on TikTok. I'm posting 2 videos a day and plan to do so into the future. So search out Morbid History Pod. The profile image is the same as the podcast logo. Find me there. Back to the show. Artemus Ogletree wasn't the first to vanish into mystery, and he won't be the last. History is full of loose ends, stories that don't line up, lives that end with a whisper, not a conclusion. In some cases, the silence is the scariest part. Let's take a look at some of the strangest unsolved mysteries from around the world. Events that defy logic, resist explanation, and continue to haunt the pages of history. The Atlas Vampire Murder, 1932, Sweden. A woman is found in her Stockholm apartment, blood drained from her body, with bite marks on her neck. The press dubbed it the Atlas Vampire. No suspects, no arrest, just an eerie scene that felt more folklore than forensic. The disappearance of the Sauter children, 1945, West Virginia. A fire consumed the Sauter family home on Christmas Eve. 5 children were never found. But the house didn't burn long enough to destroy their remains. Strange letters and sightings followed for years. The family put up a billboard that stayed up for decades, asking, "What happened to our children?" The Ghost Blimp, 1942, California. A U.S. Navy blimp took off with 2 crewmen aboard. It drifted back hours later, empty. No signs of a struggle, no damage. Parachutes and life rafts untouched. The men were never found. No one knows how or why they vanished. The Isdal Woman, 1970, Norway. A woman's charred body was found in a remote valley. All identifying marks were removed. Her fingerprints had been burned off. She carried multiple fake passports. Some believe she was a spy. Others claim she was part of a cult. To this day, no one knows who she was or why she died. The Max Headroom signal hijacking, 1987, Chicago. A man in a Max Headroom mask hijacked 2 TV broadcasts in Chicago, interrupting the news with distorted images and bizarre ramblings. No one claimed credit. No one was caught. It remains one of the most infamous unsolved hacks in history. Creepy, confusing, and oddly theatrical. As humans, we seek answers. We want clarity and understanding, as opposed to mystery and confusion. These stories that keep us groping in the dark leave us unsettled. But one unexplained happening in particular feels like something straight out of science fiction, or even spiritual horror. August 20, 1966. A 17-year-old boy was flying a kite on a grassy slope in Brazil. The area was quiet, overgrown and forgotten, tucked behind an industrial zone and bordered by power lines. The boy wandered off the path, chasing his kite higher, higher, and then he stopped. In the brush ahead, something didn't belong. Two bodies, side by side, lying in the tall grass, stiff and oddly posed, each dressed in a suit and raincoat, despite the August heat. Each wearing a strange, metallic mask, shaped like sunglasses, the kind you might use to shield your eyes from radiation, or a welding arc, or something else entirely. No blood, no wounds, no sign of a struggle. Just two men, face up, as if staring into the sky, waiting for something. The investigation begins. When police arrived on the scene, they were baffled. The two victims were identified as Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, both in their 30s, both electronics repairmen from the nearby town of Campos dos Goitacazes. The belongings found near the bodies only deepened the mystery. An empty water bottle, two towels, wet and folded neatly, a package labeled capsules, and a handwritten note that read, 1630, be at the specified location. Take capsules at 1830. After effect, protect metals. Await signal. Mask. That final word, mask, matched the items still covering their faces. Police had no idea what to make of it. The lead masks. The masks were homemade, cut from thick sheets of lead, shaped like wraparound sunglasses with no ventilation or visibility. They appeared crudely crafted but purposeful, molded to sit snugly over the eyes. Experts said they weren't medical, and not industrial, and certainly not recreational. So, why were they wearing them? Some believe the masks were designed to protect the eyes from bright light, perhaps the kind that might accompany a spiritual vision, or something more cosmic. Others thought it was ritualistic, symbolic, like blindfolds for the dead. And then there was the note, short, strange, and oddly clinical. Take capsules. Protect metals. Await signal. Mask. It read like instructions for a departure. Not from the hillside, but from this world. The timeline. As investigators traced the men's last days, a timeline began to emerge. One that made things even stranger. On August 17th, 3 days before their bodies were found, Cruz and Viana told their families they were headed to Sao Paulo to buy supplies for work. Instead, they took a bus to Niterói. Surveillance from a local bar showed them purchasing a bottle of water, the same one found near the bodies. The waitress described them as anxious. Viana checked his watch repeatedly. They left in a hurry. They were never seen alive again. When their bodies were discovered, they had been dead for at least 24 hours. But decomposition was slower than expected, as if they died peacefully, calmly, with no exertion. And yet, no autopsy could determine the cause of death. Their internal organs were too decomposed. The capsules were never identified. Toxicology was inconclusive. The cult theory. The deeper police dug, the stranger the backstory became. Friends of Cruz and Vienna told investigators that the two men were deeply interested in spiritualism, specifically a subset of beliefs involving telepathy, alchemy, and extraterrestrial contact. They were part of a small group, unofficial, informal, that experimented with communication beyond the physical world. They believed in life on other planets, in soul transmission, and in the possibility of interdimensional travel. The group had reportedly performed rituals in the past. One such experiment allegedly involved using psychedelic substances to, quote, heighten psychic awareness, unquote, and receive instructions from beings of light. Some even believed Cruz and Vienna had previously attempted contact, and this time, they were preparing for full physical transit. A friend later testified, "They believed that by preparing the mind and body correctly, they could move on to another dimension. The masks were to protect them in the moment of crossing." But from this world's perspective, whatever they were waiting for never came. The possibilities. The case quickly attracted international attention. Journalists from Brazil, Europe, and the US all latched onto the story. It had everything: a hill, two dead men, cryptic notes, lead masks, and no answers. Speculation exploded. Was it alien contact? Some believed Cruz and Vienna were trying to make contact with extraterrestrial beings, possibly expecting a blinding flash or energy burst, hence the eye protection. Was it a cult ritual? Others believed the men had been led into a ritual by a third party, perhaps a cult leader or spiritual mentor, and had taken fatal drugs, thinking they'd ascend or survive. Was it a scientific experiment gone wrong? A few suggested the men were testing electromagnetic fields or radiation, possibly miscalculating the dosage of a sedative or hallucinogen. Was it murder? And then, of course, the theory that someone else was involved, that the note was planted, that the men were drugged or coerced, that the masks were part of the cover-up. But if it was murder, why was nothing taken? Why the carefully placed items? Why the message? Similar cases. Some researchers pointed to other strange deaths involving mysterious notes and ritualistic elements. In Norway, as I mentioned earlier, there was the body of the Isdal woman. And this actually happened 4 years after this lead mask case. And remember, she was burned, her fingerprints were removed, and she was surrounded by coded notebooks and had multiple aliases. And then in the US, the Circleville letters case involved anonymous threats, hidden traps, and a crime no one could tie to a single person. But the lead masks case stood apart, because this wasn't just a death, it was a plan. At least one of the victims seemed to believe in this plan. They bought the items. They followed the steps. They wrote the note. They thought they were about to see something. Or become something. The missing third man. A theory emerged that a third person had been guiding them, possibly from the spiritualist group they belonged to. Some witnesses claimed to have seen a man with them in Niteroi. One even claimed he'd dropped them off at the base of the hill. But the man's identity was never confirmed. If there was a third figure, was he a teacher? A fellow believer? Or something darker? The press began calling him O Mentor, the one who gave the signal. To this day, no one has come forward. Theories, then and now. Over the decades, theories have continued to emerge, each more surreal than the last. That the men were testing mind over matter experiments. That they were trying to survive a UFO encounter. That they were victims of an underground spiritual cult with rituals rooted in obscure science fiction and Catholic mysticism. In Brazil, the case became legend, fodder for conspiracy theorists, ghost stories, and UFO believers. In paranormal circles, it's often cited as one of the most convincing cases of contact preparation gone wrong. And yet, nothing has ever been proven. The masks are now kept in evidence archives. The hill still stands. And the truth, whatever it is, remains buried with the men who sought it. What makes the lead mask case so unsettling isn't just the strangeness of the objects or the coded note. It's the fact that Cruz and Vienna believed. They weren't running. They weren't resisting. They didn't seem afraid. They followed the instructions. They laid down on the hillside. They looked up at the sky. And they waited for something. A light, a signal, a voice, a being. Something. Something that never came. Or maybe something we just can't yet explain. Unsolved mysteries remind us that we don't know everything. They expose the cracks in the stories we tell ourselves about logic, about control, about closure. Sometimes, people vanish. Sometimes they die in ways that leave more questions than answers. And sometimes, the strangest part isn't what we don't know. It's the possibility that someone, somewhere, does. This has been Morbid History. I'm your host, Thomas Gloom. And if these stories leave you looking over your shoulder or double-checking your locks tonight, you're not alone. Thank you for taking this brief journey with me. If you enjoyed this little audio excursion, then please leave a review wherever it is that you listen. And come on, join me on TikTok, where I consistently post all kinds of dark happenings and true crime mysteries. And remember, the next time something strange happens in the night, a voice on the radio, a shadow at the window, a note with no explanation, some mysteries don't want to be solved. I'll be back in 2 weeks with a new morbid morsel. But until then, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, history can be a lot of things, including morbid.